Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about one of the big problems that I see online, and we're seeing it unfortunately coming out of the evidence-based world of always looking for these perfect exercises to work each head of a muscle, and triceps can be exemplified here. This is a perfect example because for someone like me, who triceps are a weak link that I really need to work on right now for my overall strength and development. So they're a weak point for me. So I'm putting a lot of effort into triceps right now. And not from a bodybuilding perspective because I'm not a bodybuilder. I always want to make that clear. I have to remind people I'm not interested in bodybuilding. I don't like bodybuilding. I care about strength. But we still have to look at muscular development because muscular development is the largest factor in how strong you are as an individual. Right? 90% of our strength comes from hypertrophy. I need bigger, stronger, more developed triceps and arms in general right now. It will help me with my strength. So let's take something like the triceps, because we'll see people who will be like, well, we need to come up with all these different exercises to work different heads of the tricep. And it will be something like, oh, do this combination of 3 different small movements. And in no world has anyone ever made progress doing that. It's absolutely ludicrous because people are trying to turn the human body into a collection of little smaller individual body parts instead of thinking of how do we program a program to then focus on building up that muscle, because we obviously have to grow everywhere, we have to get stronger everywhere, but this muscle becomes a priority. And look at the 3 exercises that I'm doing right now in this. This is a typical upper body workout for me these days because I need these muscles to come up. And we won't get into all the aspects of the chest because it actually addresses the chest completely also. This actually completely addresses the entire pectoral top to bottom. But that's a separate topic because that's also something I need to work on. But let's talk about something like the triceps. Why can't people just take big, effective exercises that are big multi-joint movements and train them near your maximum recoverable volume every week? And then find a supplemental lift that addresses whatever they don't maximally develop. The problem is that these guys think that they are training smarter, and the reality is a lot of them need to train harder. Now, the winning combination is to train harder and smarter. Okay, that works best. But what we have in the case of a lot of this stuff, and I mean, again, perfect example, guys like Jeremy Ether, who's now growing an audience. And this is not a guy with an extreme amount of training experience or knowledge, and he's not particularly strong or jacked, but he's marketable. And he's got a young, impressionable audience listening because he sounds like he knows what he's talking about with some of the science, but he doesn't talk about how to program it correctly. They're not programming it correctly because there's the lack of the focus on the big basic exercises and then filling in the weak links with small stuff. But triceps are a perfect example. They're a perfect example. Look how many young guys are going to care about their arms. And understandably so. I get that, guys. I get that. That's what you can see in a t-shirt. At least sticking outside of the t-shirt. Triceps make a big deal from the side. I get it, guys. So let's talk about something like that. Do you really need to stand around worrying about all these different small exercises trying to work each head of the tricep? And are all those exercises even good ideas to load maximally or to load with high volume? Not necessarily, because just because something hits a muscle doesn't mean that it's not going to cause tendon issues if you try to push it to extreme volumes. Because let's be realistic here. What grows a muscle? What grows a muscle? Tension and fatigue. Okay? Tension and fatigue. This is how we stimulate hypertrophy. This is how we stimulate it. And then obviously it grows during rest and recovery. So rest and nutrition. All right, so what about the tricep? You could take movements like this, weighted dip or a closed grip bench press. They're good basic tricep builders. They build muscle in other places. They're easily loadable because they're big multi-joint movements. And done correctly, you can train with pretty high volumes of them, with moderate to high reps. There is your basis of building your tricep. That is your base exercise. Now, the argument could be made, rightfully so, that it might leave the long head neglected. Well, the long head's technically the biggest head of the tricep. It's the lazy head, though. The reason it doesn't get activated always on big exercises. So we need something that causes that shoulder extension to occur. Well, look at the way I do those laying extensions. Look at the way I do those laying extensions. Let's say we cut dips out completely. I would argue that dips are the best multi-joint, big multi-joint exercise for your triceps. A lot of top experts would agree because they work all three heads a little more effectively than most. In addition to being basically squats for the upper body, let's say you can't do dips. Closed grip bench press and the tricep extension. Those two exercises bring a lot to the table, don't they? They bring a lot to the table because we can build the brunt of the strength on the tricep, particularly that lateral head and the medial head off the closed grip bench press, can't we? Can absolutely do that. It's a big multi-joint exercise that you can train very hard and you can load it heavy. We need to be looking at those things first. I don't care what muscle you're building, we need to be looking at what big movement can I train it with. Then, if it's a particularly important muscle, in my case triceps, or something I need to work on very, very hard right now, then we come in and say, okay, now, what performance elements am I missing? What is it that the closed grip bench press isn't bringing to the table? Because obviously it'll help grow my triceps, but it won't maximize development. So we would look at an exercise like this. Why would we pick an exercise like this? Because it puts a heavy focus on the long head, the head that's getting the least work out of the closed grip, while still working the other heads. That makes it a very efficient movement. Now, because it has a slight multi-joint component, it's easier to progress on. That's what people need to remember. The smaller the exercise, the harder it is to progressively overload it. All you can rely on is muscle failure. But it's an exercise with a very easy way to detect muscle failure because you have a pullover position, which puts a stretch on the long head, and then you have to do the extension to bring it up, and the other two heads get involved at that point. When you get to the bottom and the other two heads can't get involved, you still got the extra rep for the long head. So when you reach muscle failure on that particular exercise, the head that you're doing it with the most emphasis on still got recruited for an active rep. So we're getting a 1-2 punch there. That would be training smarter and training harder, because you would do as much work as you can handle on the big movement, then we go to that small movement, and then we train it to failure. We train it to failure, thus recruiting every single available motor unit and muscle fiber in the triceps. That combination of movements, like if you were to do, again, 5 sets of the closed grip, near limit sets, and then you did 5 sets to failure, with that laying extension, you have fatigued and recruited pretty much every single muscle fiber in the entire tricep to most likely at least your minimum effective volume for growing them. And you've done it in every single head of the muscle. People need to be more intelligent with this stuff, because I could do the same thing with hamstrings, and I do the same thing with hamstrings. Important muscle to me. Same approach could be taken. Find big compound movements and train them hard and heavy. And then find a smaller movement that addresses whatever element the big movement is not hitting that muscle. Right? I could combine a good morning with a glute ham raise to do the same thing for the hamstring, right? The idea is the same. This is training harder and training smarter, not just trying to find shortcuts to get there that are going to be inefficient and ineffective. There are no perfect exercises. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.